Hello, everyone. Welcome to Elevate User Group's Community Hour. We will get started shortly, just waiting for everyone to join. Right, good crowd already. I see Klaus on there. Good to see you. And Chris Turner. Great to see some familiar names there. And Joseph. Thanks for joining us. All right, I'll go ahead and kick things off since I don't want to delay any time before we get to our great speakers. I'd like to welcome everyone to the community hour today. Today is a community hour to recap Microsoft Ignite. So we have some great speakers here for you today that are going to give you all the information you need, whether you attended and you're looking for a summary, discussion on some key questions, or if you weren't able to attend and you'd like to get the scoop, today's for you. My name is Ann Sari. I am the Executive Director of the Elevate User Group. And the user group, in case you're not familiar with it, our main priority is bringing members together who are on the multi-cloud journey to modernizing their infrastructure. So we do that by having events like this, virtual community hours, in-person events throughout the year, and we also have on-demand resources. If you have any questions today for our speakers, please use the Q&A function. They are here to help and answer your questions. We also have Suzanne Pickett from our board of directors who is here to be today's host. Suzanne is the SVP of Infrastructure at Citizens Bank and also on our board of directors for many years. So thank you, Suzanne, for everything you do. And I'll pass it over to Suzanne to kick things off. So enjoy. Thanks, Suzanne.
Awesome. Can everyone hear me okay? Of course, I started to have microphone issues right as we kicked off. Welcome, everybody. Glad you could make it today. Really excited to introduce our panelists today. So we have Kenny Lowe with us. He's a Microsoft Regional Director with Dell Technologies. That's correct, right, Kenny? Just making sure I've got my notes correct. I always want to make sure. And Raghu Venkataraman with Microsoft. And what we want to do today is just recap Microsoft Ignite from a couple weeks ago. I was lucky enough to be there as part of the Elevate board membership with Ann and the rest of the board members, and lucky enough to be in an event with Kenny. Great conversation. And so I'd love to kick this off. Raghu, you were there a couple weeks ago at Microsoft Ignite. What were your key takeaways and highlights from the event?
Suzanne, thanks a lot. I'm a principal product manager in the Azure Agent Platform team. I'm excited to be here, and I do recognize some familiar names in this forum, so thanks a lot. Some of you might have attended Ignite, and there was a lot of buzz and excitement around the new AI technologies that Microsoft was building. There is things around security and Copilot for security, and a lot of good products that are actually kind of launched, right, for both the developer community as well as the user community. A lot of innovations in Microsoft 365 when it comes to Copilot and how to make business processes efficient and better. And also, right, like Azure Local, which is what we are going to be talking about today, right? There's a lot of good, there was Satya that was introducing Azure Local, and then there was a lot of different forums, right, where Azure Local was being talked about. There are sessions, right, which is available on demand for folks who are kind of wanting to learn more about this, which was also there. Overall, great buzz and excitement towards Azure Local and all the different products that we introduced in Ignite.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Raghu. Kenny, I know you were there as well, and you were having a lot of conversations out there. And I know you had some key takeaways. I also know you have a couple slides for us that you might want to share just to help focus the conversation. So if you'd like to go ahead and let us know kind of some of your key takeaways and thoughts and highlights, and go ahead and take the screen if you need to.
Yeah, definitely. Lots of stuff to talk about here. So good luck staying within the hour. I'm sure we'll be fine. It was an awesome conference. Great to be there. I think it felt like Ignite was getting back to what it has been in years gone by, because it had scaled down a lot post-COVID, but it's getting back, I think, to that scale of event that we've been used to and that really had a buzz about it. Same was true of the Elevate community event that we had there. That was a packed house full of people there as well. So that was awesome to be able to support as well. And believe it or not, this is actually my last webinar of the year. This is the last one I'm presenting this year before I go on holiday, and there's no place I would rather be than here to tell everyone in this community all the things that we learned at Microsoft Ignite. And actually, this has been the first year I've really been doing a bunch of stuff for the Elevate community as well. I've delivered a few talks in this forum here, and they've all really been about Azure Stack HCI. So that's been what we've been speaking about, Azure Stack HCI. And so I think that's probably our starting point here when talking about the takeaways from Microsoft Ignite. Because Raghu, you mentioned Azure Local. That might not be familiar to some of the folks here, or to some folks that we've had on the community hours here before. If I was to really wrap this down to its most simple form, I would say that today Azure Local is effectively a rebranding of Azure Stack HCI, but it goes a lot further than that. That may be where we are today as a rebranding of Azure Stack HCI, but it's also a promise of an intent to the future as to where this portfolio is going to expand out to. Because that rebrand kind of gives us this functionality of Azure Local Connected Servers. So the first thing is, if you're already invested in Azure Stack HCI, congratulations, you're now invested in Azure Local Connected Servers. So that's the path you continue on in there, and there's no need for you to do anything or change. You're now an Azure Local Connected Servers customers. But now we get to expand out into additional types of functionality as well. Azure Local is growing. The fact that Satya was on stage announcing Azure Local, I think speaks volumes as to the impetus behind this portfolio as well. So not only will we have the core use case we've had up until this point, which is connected servers, i.e. a hyperconverged infrastructure connected to the Azure cloud there and taking advantage of Azure services on-prem, but now that's going to expand out to some smaller form factors as well, and then also to disconnected operations as well, when you just can't be connected to Azure, whether it's for regulatory reasons or latency reasons, or more likely you have no internet connectivity at all, or you're in a dark site. Some of these reasons where you want to, but you can't, there will be disconnected options there as well. But critically, all under the one banner, all under the one product piece of functionality there, which is Azure Local there now as well. I think, and I know that I talk a lot and I'll shut up in a minute, but the one other thing I think is really important is that the Azure Stack name is actually, 9 years old at this point? I think the first time I heard Azure Stack was 2015. It was probably talked about internally in Microsoft before that, so let's call it 10 years old now. And with 10 years of history, you pick up a bunch of baggage there as well. So number one, good to have that refresh, and that refresh initiated by Satya as well, building on the heritage that we've had. But also good to get rid of the HCI in the name as well, because this has moved on from being just a hyperconverged infrastructure product. Dell was the first to bring disaggregated storage to this portfolio about a year or so ago through PowerFlex, and it moved on from being just an HCI product at that point. And I think we'll continue to see it diverging from just being hyperconverged as we go into Azure Local as well. So that's how I feel about Azure Local, which I think we can all agree is excited. It's a good thing. Raghu, anything you'd like to share about this?
Yeah, you covered it really well, Kenny. Right. The few things I would like to add, right, is the whole Azure Local has a lot of consistency, not just in terms of the look and feel, but also in terms of the entire software stack, which includes the portal, which includes the ARM resources, APIs. Everything is actually kind of consistent, right? And with that kind of an experience, right, it's easy for customers who are previously on Azure Stack HCI to actually adopt other parts of the portfolio pretty easily. And the other thing, right, is around the whole low cost, low spec servers, right? There is a growing need, right, for these edge locations to have purpose-built applications, and they have very low compute, storage, and networking requirements, and they really are kind of focused around just running one single application, right? There's a growing market for that. We are investing big in it, and we do see a growing need to actually kind of have that as a better stage, right, in terms of adoption and product maturity.
Absolutely. You know, the other thing that I was going to say about Microsoft Ignite as well is that I've attended there for a number of years, and I've spoken about, you know, the Azure Stack portfolio, and this year Azure Local as well. This year I did a breakout session and a theater session, both absolutely packed houses, so completely full there. The Azure Local booth was just rammed with people coming through all the time. It was really full, and I heard that Bernardo Caldas, who's one of the CVPs at Microsoft, his session on Azure Local was oversubscribed by multiple times. I think almost a third of the entire conference signed up to go to that to learn about Azure Local and couldn't get in. So that speaks, I think, to a lot of the interest around this portfolio. And if I can be a bit cheeky and skip to the next slide, there may be a key reason for this just now, that this is top of mind for a lot of people just now, which is there are a bunch of people who are looking at what is next in my on-premises infrastructure here. I mean, at Dell Technologies, we see a broad swathe of different things people are doing. There are people staying on VMware, there are people modernizing some parts, there are some people moving to other technologies. For my part, I see a lot of people and a lot more interest than I've ever seen before in the Microsoft suite of products just now, especially because there's such a long, rich history and heritage between customers and Microsoft in other spaces as well. Most customers have enterprise agreements or Azure just now or M365 or some other hook into this ecosystem. So it becomes a pretty straightforward conversation there. And one of the things, Raghu, that was announced or made public preview, at least at Microsoft Ignite this year, was the ability to migrate from VMware to Azure Local using Azure Migrate. So you want to share what's going on with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing is, everybody knows that there is a growing set of customers who want to move away from VMware because of the changes in terms of licensing costs. So what Azure Migrates offers, right, is a way to actually move your applications in VMs, right, towards Azure Local pretty seamlessly. No need to actually rewrite, no need to change anything. You pretty much have a way to convert your VMDK files, right, into an Arc-enabled VM with VHDX file. The Azure portal has a guided workflow towards kind of doing that pretty seamlessly. With Azure Migrate, you can easily do that. And you don't need to actually kind of get it into cloud and get it back. So there is an easy process towards kind of making that happen. And this is in preview right now. If you're interested, if there is a link towards it, please do sign up at this time.
And
Yeah,
actually,
so
just
I'm going to raise my hand on that.
Yeah.
I need to. I have the same challenges, I think, as a lot of our audience does in terms of what's next. And so, yeah, I'm telling you both right now, webinar aside, that I want to sign up for that preview. So, okay, I want to go a little off script if you guys are okay with that.
Absolutely. Just before we go
Not that we're
script, can I say
scripted.
just
We're
one
more
thing?
like Top Gear, right? We're not scripted. But I do want to, Kenny, you had mentioned that you were at our Elevate community event at Microsoft Ignite, and you actually hosted a panel with Joseph Proya, who is actually joining us today and who has submitted a question in Q&A. So if you guys are okay with it, what I thought we might do is segue a little bit into talking a little bit about your conversation with Joseph from Patagonia. And by the way, thanks Joseph, because I've been wearing my fleece all week because it's so cold in Texas. So thank you for that. And I also want to ask you the question that Joseph posed, if you guys are cool with it.
Absolutely.
Right on. All right. Joseph asked, can you touch upon any developments of the Windows Admin Center, WAC, and what that will look like in a version 2 release that might be on the roadmap for next year? Is that something that you guys can speak to?
Yeah,
or maybe
100%. I mean,
awesome.
I just want to clarify that Joseph is not a plant here. So this is not
He's not.
He's absolutely not. So this is a great question. It's very timely because literally today we published the Apex Cloud Platform for Microsoft Azure Windows Admin Center V2 extension. So if you're deploying Windows Admin Center V2, then as of today, actually just a couple of hours ago, you can install the Apex Cloud Platform for Microsoft Azure extension in that and take advantage of our extension connected to your Azure local instance there within WAC v2. So incredibly timely. You can find that in the Dell support site right now. Joseph, if you go and log into the Dell support site and look in the drivers and downloads there, you will see that WAC v2 extension there. You can download and use it right now. I'm not going to go too deep into WAC v2 because Raghu is here and from Microsoft and can hopefully touch on some of that. But really, the goal of WAC v2 from my perspective is to be faster. And that's the best way I can describe it. So Windows Admin Center has been out for a few years now. There have been a number of architectural changes, including some of the underlying code base and how that's developed behind the scenes there, which make WAC v2 an awful lot faster. Now, I'm never going to say it's going to be the fastest thing out there because it's still dependent on some things like WMI calls and some pullback information. It doesn't hold everything in a database there. It can just query there, but it's a lot faster than WAC v1. And now you can use the Apex Cloud Platform extension with it as well as of a couple hours ago.
Wow. Okay. And just to reiterate, again, Joseph was not a plant, nor was that question a plant. So, and this is just an example really of what we try and do with Elevate as a board member is bring this community together and have these kind of conversations to help everybody out. So I will plug the Elevate board for that. All right. We'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming with that.
Cool.
Did you have another slide, Kenny, that you wanted to
Yeah,
share?
I do. But actually, before I moved on from this one, I was just going to say that I'm going to be rebuilding my VMware lab at home over the Christmas period. So in preparation for that, I actually just migrated a bunch of my VMs from there into my Azure Local today using Azure Migrate from VMware to Azure Local, and it worked great. So that's my experience today. It went through fine, seamlessly, and all those migrated across in my garage about 20 meters that way earlier today. So that worked great.
That's awesome.
So for me, the single biggest announcement at Ignite this year wasn't the rebranding. It wasn't AI. It wasn't Copilot. It was a little thing that was snuck in the AKS service for Azure Local here. So for those that don't know, when you deploy an Azure Local cluster there, it actually comes with Azure Kubernetes service out of the box. You don't need to do anything to get that. It's just there built in. And if you want to deploy a Kubernetes cluster, you can have one up and running in less than 10 minutes there. And that's really just the time it takes to spin up the underlying VMs that support it. It's an incredibly fast time to market there for Kubernetes, and you get a managed Kubernetes experience consistent with how you get it in Azure as well. Wonderful. Roll back a month, and that would have cost you $24 per vCPU per month to run that. So you deploy a cluster there, depending on what VMs back that, you're paying $24 per vCPU per month. You roll forward to the announcement at Microsoft Ignite, and the announcement was that AKS is now going to be included in the base license cost for Azure Local, and that cost goes away. So for those people who were already invested in Azure Stack HCI, they just saved a load of money. And for those people who are investing into it in the future, they just don't have to spend a lot of money now. Kubernetes becomes free, baked in, and consistent with Azure there. This is, for me, massive, like the biggest thing that was announced at Ignite here. And I'll talk about why in the next slide, but yeah, I mean, Raghu, you're smiling there. You must be happy as well.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right, Kenny, right? So it didn't come across as actually kind of being a big deal purely because of all the things that was done previously, right? With 23H2, it was included as a first-class part of the product. It was packaged as one, deployed as one, updated as one. And the only thing remaining to do, right, is to include that as a part of the base license system, right? So going forward, that is going to happen, and the cost is actually going to be absorbed. So for folks who probably did not have hybrid benefits and stuff like that, it's going to be a huge thing for them. So.
Yep, it is awesome. And like I was saying, next slide explains why. Because this kind of lays out what Azure Local is here to deliver, some of the services within it. There are some foundational services, virtual machines there, the Kubernetes service we just spoke about, then logical networks and storage paths. Those are the foundational parts of the puzzle there, but then it's all the stuff that you run on top that matters. Now, from a virtual machine perspective, you have Windows and Linux virtual machines, awesome. You have Azure Virtual Desktop, even more awesome, the ability to run AVD session hosts there as well. You have Arc-enabled SQL Server that runs in IaaS as well. But literally every other thing that we have on screen here, every other service here has a dependency on Kubernetes. So all those things run on top of Kubernetes. So to get a built-in, managed, no additional cost Kubernetes platform out of the box here is the enabler for running all these Azure services, the app service and SQL managed instances, the new AI services, functions, logic apps, Azure IoT operations, all of those things now land on top of there. And it's a much, much easier path for customers than it was previously because there was additional cost before and there isn't now. So that's why it's exciting to me.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and there is a couple of new things in preview as well regarding the AI services that is out there. So for folks who want to check it out, it offers really cool options in terms of ML Studio, in terms of having certain on-prem data being married with augmented Gen AI and actually kind of being able to use that through AI services and AI search. That's a really cool feature. So it's in preview. If you guys want to check it out, right, it's available at this time.
Cool. And this is kind of the promise of Azure Local here and the extension of Azure Stack HCI. So not a new thing, an extension of what we've had and growing on a solid product, but it was already there. So Raghu, you speak to a lot of customers, you see a lot of people out there. What are some of the core use cases here that we're seeing customers adopt just now out in the wild?
Yeah, so the shift has been moving from traditional applications towards cloud native applications. That has been there, we have seen for the last few years, right? So what has been happening, right, is that there is a huge appetite towards kind of using these kind of managed Azure services. And there is a growing need, right, towards kind of using more app services and data services, like you mentioned. So as we evolve Azure Local, right, and there are going to be more managed services that is going to be included as a part of the portfolio, there is going to be more usage of the way in which it is actually kind of being designed, and those services will grow, right, to meet the needs of the customer. A great example, right, is going to be Arc-enabled SQL Server, right? There is a lot of really cool features, right, that we are introducing as a part of Arc-enabled SQL Server, which previously was not there, and it's only going to grow, right? The same with AI services, right? There is Video Indexer. If you guys have not done it, right, it's a very cool way to actually kind of doing video indexing, and also the search feature, right, which is currently in preview, is something that we got a lot of good feedback on at Ignite, and there are a lot of customers who are actually kind of trying it right now.
Cool. I like the way that you spoke about both the traditional and the modern, because I see this as a platform for both. And it's not, you have to choose one or the other. You can choose to run your traditional virtual machine workloads in here, going right back to Windows Server 2012, which, by the way, you get free extended security updates for within here, right through to Windows Server 2025, any Linux-based VMs here that you have as well, then right through to some of that modern cloud native stuff there as well in the one place. I really like that it's the best of all worlds there.
That's great.
Cool.
And as a technologist, I cringe when you say that you will support 2012, but as a leader who has tech debt in their environment, I appreciate that you support 2012.
Look, we don't want people to run 2012, but if people
Ah!
are running 2012, we want it to be safe.
It
So-
happens. It happens, but let's move into this decade. Okay.
But
so,
actually, I see this as a good place to modernize those 2012 workloads, because if you just lift and shift them in here, then you've got a place which has Azure SQL managed instances natively within the same platform, and you can modernize in place without having to pay for extended security updates. So, great place to do that.
It absolutely is, for sure. Raghu, I know that, and I feel like we have been talking about it, but I just want to make sure the Azure Local umbrella that we wanted to kind of cover and talk about some of those highlights. Is there anything that we haven't covered yet that you would like to just bring up? And oh, there we go. We got a slide.
Yeah, just one more, so disconnected operations, right? And this is one feature of Azure Local I'm really excited to talk about. There has been a lot of pent-up demand, specifically in regulated industries, right? Where customers want to go to Azure or customers want to go to Azure local, but they cannot do that because of very specific data sovereignty reasons that prevents them from doing that. So the architecture is pretty straightforward, right? Like the current control plane, the ARM resources and everything is actually hosted right in your local Azure region. And instead of that, right, we are taking everything, packaging that as an appliance VM, and offering the control plane and everything, all the services, right, locally, fully disconnected. And when I say fully disconnected, right, it's not just a one-time disconnected thing; it's permanently disconnected, and it will be compliant with all the data regulatory requirements, right, that is needed, right, for that industry. As you see, right, there are not all services that are able to be brought down into this specific local control plane. There are a few things like AVD, Copilot, and Defender, right? Uh, because of customer demand or because of technical reasons, right, we cannot actually kind of bring it down at this point in time. But that might change in the future, right? But this is one thing. There is a lot of demand for it. There is as for customers who have previously done different versions of Azure Stack, right? This is one slew of customers, right, who definitely want to actually kind of take advantage of this. It's currently in preview. We are planning to launch in Q1 of next year. So if you're interested, please do sign up for it.
Yep. This is the scenario that brought me into the Azure hybrid ecosystem 9 years ago now. So I'm very excited to see this come to the Azure local ecosystem as well.
Great. There is a question also by Joseph. So want to see if you guys want to answer it live. Local AI search. Does that allow tie-ins to the local file server SMB shares? Or can you define what the thoughts are on use cases?
Kenny, you want to take that or you want me to
I
take that?
have not yet had a chance to play with local AI search, so it would be disingenuous of me to give an answer when I've not played with it myself.
Yeah,
I think the correct answers would be, it depends. Okay, sorry, that was a joke.
Yeah, so the use cases that we see for that, right, for specifically AI search, right, is that since the data is local and you have a way to marry that with augmented Gen AI, right? So any kind of local data to your organization that you want to actually use, right? There is a huge use case for that. On your specific question around whether it can support SMB shares, I've got to get back to you on that. I don't know, right, at this point in time. So ping me offline. I'll try to get you an answer.
So Joseph, if you need any help with that connection, just let us know, and we'll make sure that we get that to you. All right, Kenny, I know we already brought up the Elevate community event and your conversation with Joseph, and I'm not going to put Joseph on the spot since he was not a plant for the audience. But I wanted to see if there were any. I know you talk to a lot of customers and learn a lot from their particular use cases and their unique environments. What were some of the key takeaways that you had from that conversation from that event?
You know, we've spoken a lot about Azure Local itself and the features and services and benefits there, but we've not really touched on the infrastructure or the hardware itself. And that's the foundation on which everything's built. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
And, you know, the key takeaway I had from the discussion that we had with Joseph at the Elevate user group was the incredible amount of consolidation they were able to do and move from multiple racks, and I won't say how many, but multiple racks down to just a handful of servers there was a tremendous amount of space saved, power saved, cooling saved. And when you're looking at things from an environmental sustainability perspective, I think that let's not undersell the benefits of consolidation into a smaller form footprint. There are modern infrastructure there. Maybe something's only, 4 or 5 years old, only 4 or 5 years old, but actually moving it into something more modern can actually save you more in the power and cooling and space than you're sweating that asset anyway. So that's one of the big takeaways for me there. I don't think we think about, or
Yeah.
I've stopped thinking about that so much, things that operate in the cloud space now, but the hardware remains critical. It's the foundation there, and it can reap huge benefits as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I do recall when the two of you were up on the stage, that kind of shock and awe with the audience of how many racks did you reduce? And of course, as you know, some of us are engaged in data center power and cooling, and just the logistics around data center management. That's a huge win. That's a huge win for your leadership, everybody. So don't take that too lightly, especially if you can articulate some of those cost containment or reductions that come with that, and efficiencies as well. So absolutely a massive benefit from doing that. I'll just open it up one more time, Raghu. Anything that we haven't covered that you would like to call out as a highlight from your time in Chicago?
Yeah, so not a whole lot. We covered the key announcement of Azure Local. There are a lot of other really cool stuff and features that is in Azure Local, which we probably didn't have time to cover here. If you guys have time, please do check out, right? There are a lot of blogs and a lot of demos, right? That is there for Azure Local. Please do check it out. But I think we have covered the key announcements, right, of Azure Local here.
Katie,
Yeah,
what
from
about
my
you?
perspective, well, one of the things that kept me busiest at Microsoft Ignite was going around interviewing a lot of people. So I ran around doing like 30 seconds to a minute interviews of as many people as I could, people from core networking in Microsoft, in core storage teams, in compute, in Azure Local, in Windows Server, in MVP community, regional directors, partners, you name it. I interviewed a whole bunch. All those videos are on my LinkedIn. So, hey, if we're not connected, let's connect. And you can go back through my feed there and see all those recordings there and see what people's thoughts were at Ignite Live at the time.
You did our time lapse from the Elevate event, correct?
I did.
That was awesome. I loved it. I've watched it dozens of times. Thanks for doing that. That was really unexpectedly fun to have that video of the event. Really enjoyed that.
My
All
pleasure.
right. I know we've got time, so I want to make sure that we're opening it up to any questions. Are there questions out there that we've got some great resources on the panel today? Even if it's something like, how do I get started? Or what are the networking requirements? Or how can I sell this to my manager? What kind of questions do you all have out there? If you haven't gotten started already, if you're not already in Azure, this is a great team to start and kick off some of those questions. And we'd be, as Kenny mentioned, the Elevate community, as well as the offer to connect on LinkedIn and have that exposure to these industry experts is fairly priceless. So are there any other questions out there that this team can answer? If not, I'm going to ask a really hard question of the panel. All right, while you guys are thinking of it, I will ask, since we were in Chicago, we do have a question. You're just going to have to wait for that hard question. I'm so sorry. This is Dell specific. When will Dell Apex support disconnected for Azure Local, if known? It's on the roadmap. That's an okay answer.
Yeah.
I can actually defer to Raghu on this one.
Yeah. All right. I will say this, right? Dell plans to be a launch partner when we GA this product. The GA of this product is planned for Q3 of next year. The preview of the product is going to be in Q1 of next year. There are a lot of customer demand. After we made that announcement at Ignite, the signups are actually a lot. And at this point in time, to be honest, right, we are actually kind of scaling up our support teams and our engineering team to actually kind of have the slew of public preview customers being accommodated. Having said that, we are working very closely with Dell towards kind of making sure that we both are in sync and we co-engineer that solution in the right way. So jointly, we are thinking about Q3 as a time when we GA this product.
All right. It's on the roadmap.
Perfect.
It
Yeah, I would have
depends,
just
and it's
said,
on the roadmap. My
yeah,
two favorite
I would have,
answers. All right.
I would have just said when it goes GA.
All right. I'll look for more questions coming in. Feel free to, we may not be able to answer them live, but we'll give it a shot. I was going to ask the very difficult question of Chicago deep dish pizza or Italian meat. Which do you go for?
Well, so, you said it depends. I'm going to take that path as well and say, when someone says to me Star Trek or Star Wars, I'm not going to pick. I'm going to say I love them both, and I'm going to do the same here.
That's the right answer.
That's not a bad answer. Both would be great. All right. All right. If Anne, I'm going to hand it back over to you. And if there are any other questions that pop up, then we'll try and get them answered before we close.
Great. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Raghu, and thank you, Kenny, for being our wonderful speakers today. I do want to thank our sponsors. Elevate User Group would not be who we are without the support of our sponsors to make events like this happen, and the in-person events, just what they were referencing, what we had at Ignite. So thank you to Dell Technologies, Microsoft, and Intel for your support of the community. Our next webcast will be on January 23rd, so save the date. We look forward to seeing you there. And I just would like to thank everyone on behalf of the Elevate User Group Board of Directors. Thank you for being a member, and we wish everyone a wonderful holiday season and a start to 2025.
And Kenny, thanks for joining us and being your last public event before you head off and build out your Azure local lab.
That's exactly what I'm doing, but thank you.
We'll get an update from Kenny after the new year. All right. Thank you all.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.